It is the Savage Nation. Welcome to the program. I want to talk about unemployment today. I know many people listening to this show are into the free market and into we don't want the government and we don't need government help and I never took it, I don't want it. But you know, there's a whole part of America that may be, let us say, in trouble, out of work, unemployed, hiding it, and foreclosed. And I want to ask you, has your home been foreclosed? Have you lost your job? Who do you think would help this situation more, Obama or Romney, and why? It's a very important question, given that there are, 18 million people out of work? I don't know how many are out of work. The numbers are probably much higher. See, last night, HBO normally has really bad stuff on, and I flip through it. Once in a while I watch it, so most of the time I don't. There was a show called Hard Times Lost on Long Island, and it shows like four families that were in foreclosure. They lived in Levittown, New York. They were ordinary guys. Alan Fromm and his wife Susan met in Brooklyn, moved to Plainview, raised 2 children, master's degree. Then he loses his job. Ann and Mel Strauss, they meet on the LIRR. She has a master's degree. And then his mortgage broker job moves him away. Then in 1999, he was diagnosed with cancer. I mean, the guy had one thing bad after another happen to him. Then they show a guy, Nick Puccio, out of work, losing his house. But the most heartbreaking story was this one. And I want to show you what could happen to people on Earth. Heather and David Hartstein, he was a doctor, a chiropractor. She was a teacher. And she said, we met in college, married right after college, settled on Long Island. I worked as a teacher. David was a chiropractor. They have a beautiful little house, and 2 children. And she said they were living a fairy tale life right down to the white picket fence. Okay? Nice people. Good-looking guy, strong-looking man. And then, suddenly his practice dries up. She gets fired as a teacher. And to top it off, wait, I got to read this line exactly right. This show really affected me because it shows you what could happen to people. One of the children is tests positive for Down syndrome. That's if things aren't bad enough. Here it is. On the day that the bank rejects their application for a loan modification, their little boy tests positive for Down syndrome. They file for bankruptcy. Now, this is the killer. You're watching the show. I got captivated by it. I shouldn't have watched it because it's very depressing. At the end of it, they do a postscript of what happened to the people after the show. This poor guy, this good-looking guy in his 30s, whose life went after leading a perfect life, they say he was cleaning out his basement for the foreclosure. He contacted hantavirus and died. And it shows a funeral for David Hartstein with his wife and his Down syndrome child and a healthy child. So you start to ask yourself, how lucky are you? I mean, how lucky are you? Or if you're listening to the show, do you really believe that there's no role in government for helping people who are down on their luck? I mean, let's be clear here. Let's stop with the free market baloney. There are no jobs for some people, no matter how they try. So what are you supposed to do with them? Throw them in the gutter? I don't really go for the guy riding around in the Gulfstream jet, chomping on a cigar, laughing at everybody, and saying, well, we need the free market. The more you give them a government handout, the less they're liable to work. Well, maybe that's true for some people. It's not true for all. Now, there's a 99-week limit to unemployment benefits in the state of New York. 99 weeks is 2 years, right? That's almost 2 years. So these people are now wanting an extension of the unemployment benefits, which is another question because who's going to pay for it is the real issue. So I ask myself, if you're listening to the Savage Nation, have you been foreclosed? Have you lost your job? And who are you going to vote for and why? We know Obama's not going to help you. We know absolutely Obama's practices as a communist have destroyed the economy. Like the Grim Reaper, he went through the economy. He's done nothing except basically feather his own nest, the nest of his cronies and his benefactors and donors. I can go after one after the other. We know hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, in fact, have gone up in smoke, disappeared. But if you consider yourself, let us say, somewhat of let's put it this way, you're not a liberal. I don't want to say, are you a conservative? But you know you're not a liberal because liberalism is not what you think it is. Liberalism today is radical socialism. And many of you understand that. You don't no longer identify as a liberal. But let's say you're not a liberal, but you're unemployed, and your home has gone into foreclosure, or you're about to go into foreclosure. What would you do? Now, while you're calling me at 1-800-449-8255, I want to talk about unemployment, who you're going to vote for. The show is pretty sad. I shouldn't have watched it because it brings up a lot of feelings of, loss in your life. To see a young, healthy guy like that, chiropractor, healthy, 30s, good-looking wife, 2 children. One of the kids is diagnosed as positive for Downs. Then the guy's practice go. Then first she gets fired as a teacher. And I'm a former teacher, so you can't start. Don't blame the teachers for what the National Education Association or the teachers' unions do. Don't blame the teachers. The union leaders are stealing the money. The union leaders are living like pigs. But don't blame the teacher in the schoolroom for what the teachers are suffering through. I was a teacher. It's one of the most important jobs on earth, and the least respected job in America, and a very important and very hard job. If you do teaching right, it's the hardest job on earth. You're going to blame this teacher for getting fired? She wasn't a good teacher? No, don't blame her. Blame the union workers. Blame the union managers, the corrupt unions that are stealing most of the money. They're earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in the unions, and the teachers are getting fired. So that's number one. Then here's the guy, healthy chiropractor. One bad thing after another. And she said we had 13 years of a fairy tale marriage. 13 years, they meet in college, get married, start a life, teacher, chiropractor, everything works fine. Then, boom, one after the other. She gets fired. Practice starts to diminish. Child with Down syndrome. Behind on their mortgage payments. Foreclosure. To top it off now, this healthy young guy goes in the basement to clean up the basement because he's going to be thrown out on the street because he can't make the payments. And he inhales rat droppings, I guess is what it is, and he gets hantavirus and dies. She's left alone with nothing. And you ask yourself, how do people live with these things happening to them?